on Lowe syndrome. Meet Basil. Basil has Lowe syndrome, but you would never guess it by the way he takes on life. Basil is 10 years old and is in 5th grade at Victory Christian Academy in Hibbing, Minnesota. He attends regular classes and has been on the honor roll since kindergarten. Although small in stature, he makes up for it with his enthusiasm and zest for life. He is friends with everyone from preschool through to 12th grade. Everyone knows him and is his friend. All the teachers know him and know his little quirks. They embrace them as part of who he is. A friend to all and somebody who would never intentionally hurt anyone or anyone's feelings. No one sees him as having a disability. They just see their friend Basil. This past summer, Basil discovered that he likes sports. He loves to play baseball at the Miracle Field in Hibbing. This field was constructed with the needs of exceptional kids in mind. He's a very enthusiastic player, and it didn't take long for spectators to know his name and cheer for him. Yup, Basil is the hit of the ball team. He's currently participating in Special Olympic bowling and plays with a lot of animation. Of course, he makes sure that you're watching him when it's his turn to bowl. Once again, it didn't take long for everyone watching him bowling to begin his own cheering section. His cheering section is the biggest, and it's led by his big sister Morgan with help from his little brother Evan. Basil has an enthusiasm for life that is very contagious. Yes, Basil has Lowe syndrome, but it doesn't hold him back. It only makes him more determined. An overview. According to lowsyndrome.org, the condition known as Lowe syndrome was named after Dr. Charles Lowe, the senior member of the group that described it. Because of the 3 major organ systems involved, the eyes, brain, and kidney, it is also known as OCRL, oculocerebrorenal syndrome. Much research has taken place in the last few years. The gene has been mapped and the deficient enzyme has been identified, although its role is not fully understood. A very detailed medical description of Lowe syndrome can be found at the following website. This article is suggested for medical professionals and researchers who need to learn more about Lowe syndrome. Lowe syndrome virtually always presents only in males. However, exceptional rare cases have been documented in females. Associated issues. According to lowsyndrome.org, individuals with Lowe syndrome are born with cataracts in both eyes, which are usually removed at a few months of age. Most are fitted with glasses, contacts, or a combination of the two. Glaucoma is present in about 50% of Lowe syndrome cases, though usually not at birth. Prescription eye drops and surgery, potentially, is required to maintain appropriate eye pressure in these cases. While not present at birth, many Lowe syndrome individuals develop kidney problems at approximately 1 year of age. This is characterized by the abnormal loss of certain substances in the urine, including bicarbonate sodium, potassium, amino acids, organic acids, albumin, and other small proteins, calcium, phosphate, glucose, and L-carnitine. This problem is known as Fanconi-type renal tubular dysfunction, and can also be seen in certain other diseases and syndromes. In Lowe syndrome, the Fanconi syndrome may be mild and involve only a few substances, or it may be severe and involve large losses of many substances. Medications can be prescribed to replace the lost substances. Support for parents. Living with Lowe syndrome is a resource published by the Lowe Syndrome Association. It was published in 2010. It is a comprehensive guide, and it's organized by frequently asked questions, background information, medical information, genetic information, research, development education, behavior education, parents and families living with Lowe syndrome, words and experience from Lowe Syndrome Association parents, the Lowe Syndrome Association, parent resources, glossary of medical terms in Lowe syndrome, and scientific references. A particular interest to parents may be the section entitled Words of Experience and Encouragement from the Lowe Syndrome Association. So, taken from this section, some words of experience and encouragement for Lowe syndrome parents regarding day-to-day life with a child who has Lowe syndrome. From the age of 2 until time for kindergarten, I drove him year-round 30 miles each way to the rehab center, hauling 3 youngsters beside him in the summertime. The visits to doctors and clinics and the surgeries and tests which drain even the strongest are very vivid for me. My son's behavior was so bad in the mall a couple of weeks ago, someone called security. He was yelling, cussing, and biting himself. The security guard came and asked what the problem was. I said, well, we have behavior problems. He asked my son what was wrong. He said he was hungry. I had bought some French fries, and he wouldn't eat them. Anyway, I thought, this man has no clue, no idea at all. Looking back now, I laugh. I didn't think it was so funny then. It hasn't always been easy, but with guidance and structure, our son leads a productive life and enjoys his friends, school, and family, even though he has Lowe syndrome. When our son was younger, from about the age of 2 until 6, we spent a lot of time in the hospital with minor illnesses becoming major illnesses. As his immune system matured, his illnesses are more typical and less stressful on him and our family. I was thinking of putting him in a special center when he gets into his teens, but I don't know if I'll be, because I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to handle him on my own. So this is a quotation taken from that handbook, The Support for Parents, Children Living with Lowe Syndrome, and I thought it provided some great insight into what it might be like to live with a child who has Lowe syndrome. Developmental and educational needs. According to Living with Lowe Syndrome, a guide for families, friends, and professionals, individuals with Lowe syndrome are unique, and they are not all alike. The presence and severity of symptoms varies from child to child, even in the same family. As a result, the age of achieving major developmental milestones varies. However, some general statements can be made about the development and educational needs of individuals with Lowe syndrome based on the observations of families in the Lowe Syndrome Association, as well as on recent research findings. Because of their physical and developmental disabilities, individuals with Lowe syndrome are usually significantly delayed in most areas of development. While development generally follows the normal sequence, the level of development in one area, language for instance, may be more advanced than in another area, like gross motor skills. Various therapies and educational programs can help affected individuals develop to their maximum potential. In general, children with Lowe syndrome, even those with behavior problems, are known to have bubbling personalities. They are loving and sociable and have a wonderful sense of humor. Many have a special feel for music. When healthy and in a stimulating environment, they are often happy and alert. With help, they can grow and develop into functioning members of their families and communities and can be enjoyed and appreciated for the unique personalities and accomplishments. Students with Lowe syndrome will require support such as an IEP. They also may need physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and vision therapy. While some individuals participate in regular classrooms with support, for other individuals, programming is geared towards self-help and other skills. Just as the presence and severity of symptoms varies from child to child with Lowe syndrome, the educational plans will need to vary as well. Behavior characteristics. According to Living with Lowe syndrome, a guide for families, friends, and professionals, some individuals develop severe behavioral problems, especially during the school-age years. As a result, parents and school staff spend significant amounts of time and attention dealing with these problems because they can interfere with learning, social interaction, and family functioning. A behavioral psychologist may work with parents and teachers to develop appropriate and effective methods for dealing with behavioral issues and helping the child to maximize their capacity for learning. A behavior safety plan may be developed by a school and will probably be beneficial. Behavior problems in Lowe syndrome are believed to have an organic origin. That is, they are caused by a problem in brain function due to the syndrome. A 2008 comprehensive survey looked at 54 behaviors. Living with Lowe Syndrome, a guide for families, friends, and professionals, compiles these behaviors into 14 specific categories. Some individuals may exhibit none, or some may exhibit one or more of the following behaviors. Sometimes these behaviors may overlap with each other. The 14 categories include self-injurious, anxiety disorders, sexual behavior problems, repetitive motor behavior, verbal aggression, disruptive behavior, frustration tolerance, property destruction, hyperactive and inattentive behaviors, tactile sensory defensiveness, need for sameness, hypervigilant to correctness, oppositional defiant, and obsessive compulsive disorder. According to Living with Lowe Syndrome, a guide for families, friends, and professionals, there are 2 basic principles to behavior management. The first includes modeling appropriate behavior, and the second is using positive reinforcement. Community agencies. It is clear that caring for a child with Lowe syndrome is challenging. Proper supports, education, and training is needed for parents and educators. In my hometown of Kingston, Ontario, there are a number of community agencies that offer support. They include the following: Community Living Kingston, Easter Seal Ontario, Extend a Family Kingston, the Hotel Dieu, Make Way for Me Occupational Therapy, Southeast Local Health Integration Network, and Ongwanada Kingston. Strategies for successfully educating students with Lowe syndrome. Every student with Lowe syndrome is different, and so it is important to know your student and their educational and medical history. Successful strategies are found on a case-by-case basis, but knowing your student is critical. How can teachers ensure that a student with this syndrome reaches their full potential? Well, according to Living with Lowe Syndrome, a guide for families, friends, and professionals, there are a number of things to keep in mind. First, it's important to become knowledgeable about Lowe syndrome. Teachers should learn as much as they can. If the child is young, it's important to find an early intervention program to provide the stimulation and assistance the child needs in the crucial early years. It's important to listen to the concerns that other family members, teachers, and colleagues have voiced. It's important for everybody to stay informed. Teachers should learn about the rights of people with disabilities. As much as possible, try to maintain a sense of humor. Sometimes the most effective way of dealing with a difficult situation is to try to find something funny in it. Understand that the many emotions you feel are normal, including grief, fear, anger, and despair. Help other children understand that mixed emotions are normal and perfectly understandable. There is no right or wrong way to feel. What's important is how you choose to cope with your feelings. Finally, stay confident. Confidence in your ability to handle the challenge of working with a child with Lowe syndrome can be found in the knowledge that other families, teachers, and school associations have traveled the same path and have found a way to cope successfully. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Good night.